Now, let's get real. Do you actually want to meet your shadow? Yes, that hidden dark corner of your personality you think you've tucked away safely. Turns out it's not just lurking. It's holding some of the best tools for a bolder, truer version of yourself. Don't worry. Stick with me, your friend Carl Jung, and I'll walk you through how to master that inner darkness that everyone has but few dare to face. Quick story. In my early career, I had a mentor, Sigmund Freud. We shared a close bond, like father and son, but as time passed, our ideas began to clash, especially around spirituality. He was all science and facts, but I believe there was more to the psyche, something deeper. We had a bitter falling out. Losing his friendship forced me into a period of solitude, one that would become a descent into my own shadow. I felt torn apart and isolated, even feared I was losing my mind. But in those dark times, I came face to face with my shadow and emerged stronger for it. The shadow is that other you that's always hanging out just under the surface. Embrace it and it can change your life. But ignore it and, well, let's just say things can get messy. Stick around till the end, because you're going to learn how to handle that dark side in ways that might surprise you and maybe make you chuckle a bit. Let's break it down. Your shadow is the part of you that holds the thoughts, feelings, and impulses you've pushed away because they're uncomfortable or don't fit with the person you want to be. It is the part that gets annoyed when you're pretending to be happy. The voice that wants to argue when you're nodding along. It's the side that reacts when you're holding back. The parts you think are too dark, irrational, or bad. And yes, I've got one too. My obsession with the shadow didn't come from studying psychology. It came from facing those unwanted parts in myself. Frustrations, insecurities, and fears I didn't want to admit were there. I learned that ignoring them only made them stronger. So I started exploring them, both to understand myself and help others understand their own hidden depths. So, here's your first task. Think of a moment when the other you slipped out. Maybe you said something you regretted or snapped without meaning to. Maybe you almost freaked out because another driver cut you off in traffic. It doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're human. Recognizing these moments is the first step to mastering them. Let's clear up a misconception here. Your shadow is not the enemy. Think of it as that one friend who has no filter and isn't afraid to tell you when you've messed up. It's a little harsh, sure, but sometimes it's just plain right. If you keep ignoring your shadow, it'll find ways to make itself known, and trust me, it can be a lot messier than just facing it. So next time someone's getting under your skin, ask yourself, is this my shadow talking? It could be that the people who frustrate you most are showing you something about yourself that you've been avoiding. Here's where it gets interesting. You want to master your shadow? Start by buddying up with your inner critic. That voice that nitpicks every little thing and tells you you're not quite good enough. That is part of your shadow. It's annoying, but here's the kicker. It's actually trying to help you in its own twisted way. My inner critic used to go nuts when I thought about publishing my work. Every time it would whisper, "Who do you think you are?" That was my shadow, keeping me safe by making me doubt myself. So instead of ignoring it, I engaged with it. I'd say, "Thanks for the warning, but I'm going to do this anyway." So next time that inner critic shows up, don't hand it the steering wheel. Picture it as a backseat driver. Acknowledge it, maybe even thank it, but remind it that you're in control. Funny enough, when you do that, it tends to quiet down. Try it out. Next time your inner critic pipes up, let it have its say, then remind it who's boss. You might just find it's not as loud when you don't try to silence it. Here's a fun one. You don't have to keep every impulse on lockdown. Sometimes it's okay to give your shadow a little wiggle room. Think of it as a dance. You don't let your shadow take over the floor, but you give it a turn now and then. Here's an example. Back in the day, my work was all-consuming. I'd be analyzing patients day in and day out, and my shadow had it. I took a weekend to escape from it all and went hiking up in the mountains. No expectations, no people, just the wild outdoors. That little break saved me from having a total burnout. So here's the trick. It's not about losing control. It's about acknowledging your needs. Ask yourself what you feel like, what your body feels like. Try to observe yourself. Ready to get hands-on? Grab a journal, because we're going to get up close and personal with your shadow. Write down the thoughts that make you cringe, the ones you'd never say out loud. When you do this, you're observing without judgment. You're looking at yourself honestly. Journaling has been my go-to for years. After intense sessions with patients, I'd reflect on why certain people provoked me more than others. This practice helped me confront parts of myself I'd rather ignore. Putting my shadow on paper took away its power to control me. Tonight, grab that journal. Write down one thought or feeling you've been ignoring. Think of it as a private conversation with yourself. You might be surprised at how much you learn. Here's a challenge. What's one uncomfortable thought you've been shoving down? Write it down. Observe it. You might just feel a little lighter afterward. Once you know your shadow, flip it to work in your favor. Let's say anger's your go-to reaction. Instead of just stuffing it down, look at what's causing it. Often, our shadows hide our biggest needs. I used to hate feeling jealous. I thought it was a weak emotion, but when I looked closer, I realized it was actually showing me something I wanted. Your shadow isn't some dark curse. It's an untapped source of energy. It's where your true boundaries, desires, and strengths hide. So ask yourself, what part of your shadow could actually help you grow? When you use that insight, you're taking control of your own transformation. Finally, let's talk about humility. True humility isn't about pretending to be a saint. It's about knowing all of you, even the parts you're not proud of. Once I embraced my shadow, I didn't feel the need to look perfect anymore. My own flaws gave me a new respect for others and for myself. Humility lets you disappear from the need for constant applause. You're not playing a part, you're just being. Knowing yourself, dark corners and all, is real power. So here's a final question. What part of yourself have you been hiding? Embracing your shadow isn't a weakness, it's the thing that makes you whole. So these are several ways to accept and maybe even like your shadow. Life isn't about perfection, it's about being complete. Each of these steps helps you vanish from self-doubt and reappear as someone stronger, more grounded, and ready to take on the world. So don't just sit there, try it out. Dive deep, see what's there, and let your shadow guide you to the person you're meant to be. Thanks for joining me. Now go out there, own your dark side, and discover your real strength. Leave a comment below and don't disappear just yet. Next up, we'll explore some Stoic tips from the great Marcus Aurelius on how to be more resilient. Don't miss it.